Hi, my name is Ophi YouTube Videos. I am a feminist and a lesbian, and I make conversational commentary videos about both of those things. It is December, and while not all of the videos I have planned for this month are like this seasonal, today I would like to talk about Christmas movies. And I am saying Christmas movies and not holiday movies because, well, I'm not really aware of any movies that follow the sort of formula that I'm referring to here, but are about other December holidays other than Christmas, which obviously do exist and are celebrated and important. I'm saying Christmas movies, but I mean Hallmark movies, like how people say Kleenex, but they mean tissues, even though not all tissues are Kleenex. You know what I mean? Like how even if Hallmark isn't the one to produce a specific Christmas movie, once it has enough of the typical fallback tropes and story components, it's pretty much a Hallmark movie, even if it came out on Netflix or Lifetime. And I'm not typically a fan of Hallmark movies. Yeah? What do you think? Okay, well, she said that and left. I made a video last year about a Christmas movie that I particularly enjoy, and I also mentioned in that one that I'm generally not very big on this type of Christmas movie, about how I'm not typically super sold on the way that the storylines play out in this type of movie. I mean, we could all close our eyes and play one in our head right now. I'm gonna see if I can make one out of stock footage. We open with a busy woman, maybe in her office. She's very stressed out about her job, and she was just rude on the phone to her small-town parent who has convinced her to return home for the holidays. She has accepted this invitation, but only because she found a way to do her job while she's there. Maybe she's like a reporter or something. I wrote that, and then now I'm thinking that that might be two sharp objects. I'm not sure if reporter is one of the approved Hallmark women careers. I feel like it's maybe less specific than that. So, okay, she's not there for work, but she is going to try to continue to work while she's there. But then she's kept from working, and that is a good thing, because what she needed was to be reminded about the meaning of Christmas, and that's typically done by like a Christmas tree farmer or something, sometimes a single dad or an old high school classmate. And yeah, this isn't every Christmas movie, but it is enough of them that there are memes about it, which means that I have been fascinated by this. I wanted to talk about these kind of movies, but I didn't want to have to watch a whole bunch of these kinds of movies to talk about it. First of all, because I just had a lot of videos that I wanted to make in the back half of this year, and I did not want to start watching Christmas movies before it was even December, let alone Christmas movies I knew I wouldn't really enjoy. But I do still want to talk about this, and I think that a way to talk about this and not have to subject myself to a bunch of them are to talk about the memification of this. Because I think it's really fascinating that there are so many memes about it. I also just think they're funny, like viral tweets that point out, oh, the boyfriend who's the bad guy in the beginning of a Hallmark movie is saying, oh, I just need to finish this one deal and then we'll be set up for life. And then the hero is some guy who was standing there when she got to her hometown. Or from a couple years ago, somebody posting, oh, I need the heroine in every Hallmark Christmas movie to ask her small-town boyfriend where he was on January 6th, 2021. Hilarious. I think about it all the time, not just because they're great jokes, and I think they're really funny, but also because I am fascinated by what those jokes speak to. These Hallmark movies, or at least our cultural understanding of them, the touch points that we are using to make and circulate these memes, are usually equal parts romance novel and cautionary tale. The woman, the heroine, the protagonist, she gets saved at the end. Or is saved really the right word? I don't think it is. I think what happens is she girl bosses too close to the sun, and then she gets humbled. I think it's something that annoys people enough that they pick up on it even if they don't exactly have the language to express that that's what they're saying. Even people who would hear the way that I am about to describe these movies and say, okay, feminist killjoy, is there anything else you feel like being a victim about today? And I'm not describing them as sexist, as in saying that I don't think that they should exist. I'm describing them as sexist because I would describe a lot of things that are packaged and sold to women as sexist. I'm describing them as sexist because that's how I would class a lot, maybe most of the narratives that are sold both to and about women. I'm not anti-romance movie at all. I actually really am capable of enjoying even a heterosexual romance movie if it is done well. But I need that movie to really like its female lead. I need it to be rooting for her. And I feel like these Hallmark movies very often are not rooting for their female lead, or at least they're not doing it in a way that feels satisfying to me. She stole my spot when I got up. I think this is a reasonable adjustment, though. Usually the protagonist in these Christmas movies is a woman who, as I said, needs to be humbled. Or, similarly, but I guess not exactly the same, a woman who needs to be taught not to be so high-strung. This usually happens in tandem with her relearning the magic of Christmas or whatever. It's usually the least interesting part of the movie. But I don't think that I put together that these movies mostly exist as narrative means to punish women until I realized that that's what people are responding to. That's what people are annoyed by about these movies. That's why people don't like these movies. I want to be clear, it's not just the presence of tropes, it is how they are used and what they are used to accomplish. It's the story that those tropes are used to tell and how neatly that dovetails with the other narratives and options that get presented to women. I am not against a tropey romantic comedy. Again, I can love a romantic comedy if it is done well. I don't think any of them are ever going to be like the pinnacle of feminist media or whatever, but I also don't think that presenting romance as aspirational is inherently a bad or harmful thing. Or, I mean, it's just far enough from being the single most harmful and exploitative thing that women are dealing with in our current media landscape. I can't really care that much. Like, I'm not crusading against them. I'm sure the fact that I made a video is going to convince a lot of people that I care a lot more about this than I do. And I do, but I care about it the way I care about, like, media at large, right? I have much more present concerns about, say, generative AI than I do about Christmas movies that are sexist. I just do think it's interesting and also worth commenting on that these movies can be so passively and persistently sexist that at least some level of understanding of and criticizing of the fact that they are sexist breaks into mainstream consciousness and the way that we see Hallmark movies summarized back to us in memes, even by people who are not feminist. So let's dig into that. I would love to talk about that. And then before we wrap up, I want to talk about a couple of recent Christmas movies from Netflix that, you know, I find ridiculous and tropey and maybe not necessarily feminist masterpieces, but that did manage to buck a lot of the most frustrating of these trends in ways that I found pretty personally satisfying. Alright, the headband is killing my head a little bit, so I had to cut some of the lights down and I gotta take this off. But never let it be said that Ophi YouTube videos does not suffer for her art. Right here. So, Hallmark is not just a TV network, it is a greeting card company, which you probably already know. They first got into radio and then into sponsoring like television broadcasts of operas in early TV. I do think there is some meat on the bone here if we want to say, okay, this literal greeting card company is doing a lot of promotion of nuclear traditional family values here, we'll say. Maybe they want to make sure that they're selling a Mother's Day and a Father's Day card every year, if you catch my drift. They want to uphold all of these traditional values, but also, same as I was saying, this isn't like a particular thing where I have a crusade specifically against these Christmas movies. So does most of media, even when they're not also selling greeting cards. I found a great write-up from a website called Black Case Diaries, where they had an excellent write-up about the history of the entire Hallmark movie. You can find it linked in the description below, and I'm going to read you a little bit of it. But they were saying basically that the first of the recognizable tropes that you and I are talking about here today first really became recognizable as repeated tropes in Hallmark movies of the 1990s. Here's what they wrote. As we went down the list, the 1990s was the first time we started to see the formulas and tropes that would eventually lead us to the Hallmark movies of today. Movies like A Season for Miracles and A Holiday to Remember seemed to have the structure on which most modern Hallmark Christmas films are built. Each focused on a female lead, either arriving in a small town for the first time or returning home. Both had romantic interests that were in law enforcement. The men usually have some sort of interesting job as a pillar of the community. Interestingly enough, Both films seemed to have heavier plot lines involving the welfare of children. The Hallmark movies of the 2000s were very similar to those of the 90s, though over time the main story conflicts began to focus on the adults in the romantic relationship and less on children. The stakes seemed to be lowered overall. Like we said before, the 2010s was the beginning of Countdown to Christmas, and this is where we really saw a shift in the film content. In the early 2010s, the movies still had some of the seriousness that remained in the films of the 90s and 2000s. But by 2015, Crown Media started its own production company, managing almost every aspect of production, including costumes, location, and casting. In 2014, Hallmark premiered Christmas Under Wraps, which Bill Abbott, then CEO, considered to be the turning point for the channel. The film was the essential blueprint for many to come. It had a star that brought on nostalgia, a romantic plot, and, of course, the real Santa Claus.
And along the way, discover a big Christmas secret.
Has anyone ever told you you look just like Santa Claus?
Well, thank you.
Candace Cameron Bure
Has acted in about 30 Hallmark productions, which was surpassed by Lacey Chabert. You might remember her better as Gretchen Wieners in Mean Girls or Eliza Thornberry in The Wild Thornberrys. Okay, so
Candace Cameron Bure
played DJ Tanner on Full House, and she is who I was thinking of when I said something snide about Topanga from Boy Meets World in one of my videos about Alexa Nicholas. So I am very sorry to Topanga, who caught a stray that was meant for
Candace Cameron Bure
when I said she was married to the Saving Christmas guy. Okay, I solved with some ADR. I solved my issue where I found out I was pronouncing her last name wrong, but that's her brother. That's not her husband. I was wrong. Thank you very much to the commenter who pointed that out when I posted my short yesterday. Okay, back to the video.
Candace Cameron Bure
Played DJ Tanner on Full House, and also she is a homophobe. Candace has been in a lot of Christmas movies with Hallmark, as was said in that write-up. And then Lacey, I think, already might have been on her way to taking her place as the queen of the Hallmark Christmas movies, but Lacey especially had a chance to, because Candace, as well as a CEO, apparently rage quit Hallmark following not even a gay Hallmark movie being carried on the channel, but just an ad that featured some lesbians. The first gay movie on Hallmark wouldn't be until years later. This was just an ad for Zola, a wedding planning service, and apparently a spokesperson for the Hallmark Channel said that they pulled the Zola lesbian ad off of the air because it violated their PDA rules. Though the New York Times even points out in their subheading that Hallmark did not reject a similar advertisement with an opposite-sex couple, so that seems like bullshit. It is not just the fact that the ad is pretty widely understood to be why both she and the former CEO left and started making their own, even more Christian hegemony-focused Christmas content that makes me call her a homophobe. She's been showing her ass for quite some time regarding this. She, like many homophobes, says it's all about protecting traditional marriage. She was spouting off about this all the way back when she was hosting The View.
The Oregon law bars businesses from discriminating against sexual orientation, race, disability, age, or religion. And to me, it's the same exact thing that they did back in the day, saying that black people couldn't do certain things because it's my religious belief.
I think you are comparing apples to oranges here. I don't think this is discrimination at all. This is about freedom of association. It's about constitutional rights. It's about First Amendment rights. We do have the right to still choose who we associate with, but they did not refuse
I refuse to associate myself with you right now.
They did
Is
not.
That okay?
It's in the Constitution. They didn't refuse to bake the cake because of their sexual orientation. In fact, they had baked cakes for them.
All throughout the whole time.
They baked cake for them previously. They had a problem with the actual ceremony because the ceremony is what conflicted with their religious beliefs.
Right,
so
but were they invited to the wedding?
Yeah.
No, but
And she was quick to bring up the fact that this new network was going to center traditional marriage and prioritize that as promotion for the new network that the former Hallmark CEO started after he quit Hallmark. And I'll read from another article here about the network that this CEO started. Mr. Abbott, who brought her into the holiday movie world, is also no stranger to the culture wars. During his tenure at Hallmark, which was marked by tremendous growth, the channel drew criticism that its programming was slow to embrace diversity. Then, in late 2019, Mr. Abbott refused to air commercials for the wedding planning website Zola that featured brides kissing, sparking outrage and sending hashtag boycott Hallmark trending on Twitter. Hallmark apologized to viewers and reinstated the ad. Mr. Abbott left the network soon after without explanation. Mr. Abbott said the timing was coincidental and he left in search of a new challenge. Mrs.
Hooray.
declined to discuss her departure from Hallmark, beyond saying, "It basically is a completely different network than when I started because of the change of leadership." Also, do you want to see that lesbian ad that was so bad? Do you want to see it? Because I pulled it up.
I, Ava, wonder if our guests would be here on time.
If we had a custom wedding website.
With our ceremony details on it.
And I, Taylor, would pick Zola to have and to host our wedding website.
Ours even matched our Zola invites. The whole thing was so freaking easy.
Do you think Zola could have made planning your perfect wedding easier?
We do. I do.
We've helped 1 million couples plan their weddings with free websites, registry, and invitations. Get started for free at Zola.com.
That's it. That's it. Like, I mean, it's gay enough that I would probably be a little happy to see it on TV, but it's not risque. And they splintered a whole extra straight version of Hallmark Christmas movies off of this. Or I guess not even just Christmas. They do make movies year-round, but it's primarily a Christmas operation. Great American Family pushes both Mr. Abbott and Mrs.
Hooray.
deeper into culturally conservative territory as other networks are taking steps to trumpet diversity. Next month, Hallmark debuts The Holiday Sitter, the G-rated network's first original holiday film solely focused on an LGBT love story. Asked if she expects her new channel to feature same-sex couples as leads in holiday movies, Mrs.
Hooray.
said no. "I think that Great American Family will keep traditional marriage at the core," she said. Mr. Abbott was vague in his thoughts on the subject. "It's certainly the year 2022, so we're aware of the trends," he said. "There's no whiteboard that says, yes, this, or no, we'll never go there." Yeah, and Abbott tried again, including the following year, to distance himself from Candace's pretty rampant homophobia, saying that she doesn't actually speak for the network, which I would be inclined to say was fair if she was to this new network as she had been to Hallmark, like just some actress, but that's not the case. He's saying this person who does not speak for the whole company, you know what her job title is? She is the Chief Content Officer. I think she's just not as good at keeping the quiet part quiet because she thinks if she says, "But I'm a Christian and that means that I love everybody," that nobody will check and see if that matches up with anything else she's out there doing or saying. Imagine being that homophobic. Like, you're willing to jump ship on this thing that is like a cornerstone of your career because you feel like it is an entirely different company now that a lesbian ad made the CEO who brought you in leave. Wild. And another point here in terms of proving my work about what all of this, just the fact that there has been so many headlines about this woman being homophobic and she does not have the ability to get it through her skull why people think that about her while she's still running around talking about how important traditional marriage is. All the way back in 2017, she posted on Instagram herself in a Not Today Satan shirt. As is explained in a People magazine write-up I found about this, the phrase was made popular by RuPaul Drag Race champion Bianca Del Rio, who said the line during the show's 6th season. Del Rio sells Not Today Satan merchandise on her website and named her latest tour after the phrase. So she noticed the post of her in the t-shirt, posts it on her own profile, and says, "If only this homophobic Republican knew." And Candace's response was, "Why do you have to be nasty to me? You don't know me or my heart. I'm not homophobic and always sad when people think otherwise. Loving Jesus doesn't mean I hate gay people or anyone. You sent a bunch of hateful people to my page writing horrible things. I hope next time you'll spread love and kindness, even when you disagree with people. Sending you love and wish you all the best. Truly, Candace." Candace also claimed, according to this article that I read, that after she and Raven had that back and forth on The View, that she was getting texts from all of her gay friends. Quote, "My favorite part were all the texts that I got from my ... very close gay friends that were saying, 'We love you and we can all have different opinions and you fight for what you believe in,'" she said, "and I'm going to fight for what I believe in." The only way that that's true would be if she has, like, Republican and, like, specifically, like, log cabin Republican gay friends who are, like, okay with not being married, or if she's just fucking lying. Like, I think it's equally as likely that she has some friends who are, like, fucking traitors to the gay cause as it is that she just... I don't think anybody sent her those texts. I think at best somebody who she knows who, like, is in a lavender marriage with a woman was like, yeah, speak your mind. It's a cliche for a reason, but, like, if you do not believe in gay marriage, don't get one. If you don't believe in abortion, don't get one. You don't get to outlaw that for other people. And her argument is, I should get to outlaw that for other people because that's my religious belief. And I religiously believe that it is none of this woman's business if I would like to marry or have sex with a woman. I can think of, like, very few people who would be less involved in that decision for me than DJ Tanner from Full House. I don't think she has a right to believe in that or not any more than I have a right to believe in or not in her marriage. Framing all of this like it's just a difference of opinion, especially when it is a difference of opinion that to her is so intense that even just the presence of a gay marriage ad or the fact that that made the other guy so angry is, like, enough for her. I go back and forth with the Jesus thing. I am no longer religious. I was raised very religious. I was raised around a lot of the kind of people who think that they both can love me and also have such a prescriptive offer for my future, and you can't. You can't do both of those things. You cannot love me and want to control me to that level. You cannot love me and want to force me into your Christian hegemony when that is not my belief. Also, like, Jesus was hanging out with, like, sex workers and other people who were spurned by their society. Do you really think none of those 12 apostles was gay? Actually, forget everything else I said to comment about. Tell me which apostle you think was gay. Is it Paul? Probably Judas. Probably Judas. Or do I just think Judas because of, like, Jesus Christ Superstar and also Lady Gaga? No, I feel like it's Judas. Anyway, I have plenty else that I would say about Candace that I think she would say is being nasty to her that's actually just pointing out that, like, this woman is homophobic. You are definitionally homophobic if you do not believe in the rights of gay people to get married and have equal protections under the law to you. That is homophobia. Even if you don't think that you hate gay people, even if you would not beat up a gay person for being gay, that is homophobic. You are homophobic. If a gay person has not told you that yet, I'm a gay person telling you that. That's homophobic. She is homophobic. And the same way that I think that these memes speak to a larger pattern that people are noticing, I think this homophobia thing does too. Yeah, maybe Candace and this CEO are the only two who got a bunch of really negative press about it, but it does seem like the people at Hallmark behind the scenes were really kicking and screaming about every ounce of diversity that ended up getting included in their movies. From my reading, 2020 is the first year that Hallmark started to actually include gay couples in their movies. There were also a few that came out in the 2023 season, including one with Jonathan Bennett, who was Aaron Samuels in Mean Girls, and Vincent Rodriguez III. I haven't seen this one yet. I didn't watch it for this video. I would like to see it. It just wasn't as convenient to toss on as the ones on Netflix were. But I do really like Josh from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is who that Vincent Rodriguez III is. So I do want to watch this at some point, and if it's good, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And Great American Family, the new company that Candace jumped ship to go make videos for, they're still making Christmas movies. Though this year, apparently they're releasing 16 rather than 23, so fingers crossed, maybe they'll just fizzle out in a few years. And despite the CEO's whole, oh, you never know, there might be gay people in the future thing, I scrolled through the TV Guide summary of the videos that are coming out, and I only saw straight couples listed. Also, Great American Family is PureFlix. In case PureFlix has come up in any other, like, YouTube commentary videos you've watched, I definitely am, like, familiar with PureFlix, even though I've never watched anything from there. I was like, oh, crossover moment. It's, like, all together, I guess. But Hallmark movies have baggage, right? And I think that they have that baggage because while a lot of things are incredibly prescriptive in the sets of options that they're laying out for women, this one is so prescriptive that we can't even pretend not to notice. It is so obvious about what it's doing that CEOs and network-favored actresses pack up and throw tantrums at changes in what's being presented to the women watching it. And though I'm about to be kind of praising of some similar movies, I'm really not here to argue with anybody who dislikes these movies. I do think that they are sexist. I think just the existence of something that's only about straight people is not always inherently homophobic. But when those straight people are clearly expecting the sort of exclusivity and prioritization that Candace seems to have been expecting, it does absolutely risk becoming homophobic. And I don't really think that throwing in 2 to 4 movies a year on Hallmark's end is a real improvement, but I do think that it's at least not as bad as this thing that splintered off of them is, which I think is at least something. Something else that's not nothing, though, is, again, like, Hallmark did get a lot of backlash for pulling that gay ad. And then also, once Candace was off making these statements in interviews, she also got kind of responded to in both an interview that Lacey did about how she, like, felt at home at Hallmark, and by Hillary Burton, an actress who has also worked with Hallmark, because they really like to pull those nostalgia names, which I think is actually a really cool thing that they do. Anyway, she tweeted when these headlines were circulated, "Now they're just openly admitting their bigotry. I called this shit out years ago when Abbott was at Hallmark. Glad they dumped him. Being LGBTQ isn't a trend. That guy and his network are disgusting. You too, Candy. There is nothing untraditional about same-sex couples." And Hillary also retweeted a link for Candace Cameron Bure explains why she left Hallmark for GAC Family. They're good Christians that love the Lord, and said, "Bigot. I don't remember Jesus liking hypocrites like Candy, but sure, make your money, honey. You ride that prejudice wave all the way to the bank." So this Wall Street Journal article that I have been pulling from is called
Candace Cameron Bure
Wants to Put Christianity Back in Christmas Movies, and I have my religious vibes are like tingling reading this. I mean, I haven't looked into the background of this author at all. I don't know if that's just all coming through because that's how Candace wanted it to come through. I don't know if that's how this author feels. It just very religious vibes, very this is cool and good. And I'm aware that it will sound a bit hypocritical if you watched my recent video where I was using Miss Blanchard Anderson to refer to the name of somebody whose, like, first name was a slur. But I did think that the Mrs. and Mr. in this were strange. I guess I would have thought the Mrs. was more strange if they weren't also calling him Mr. for the CEO, but I just was like, ooh, why is this written like we're in Sunday school? The article talks about, like, a religious scene, about the director trying to make sure that the God light comes through right in a scene where Mrs. Bure's character is, you know, seeing God, and that they had to make sure that the light didn't come out too hallelujah-y. But anyway, the end of this article, and something that I think proves my point of even people who are not feminists are noticing that there is something fishy about these Hallmark tropes. The article ends saying, Mrs. said the channel gave her the freedom to make a holiday movie that wasn't a rom-com, dispensing with the snowball fights, peppermint cocoa snuggles, and other tropes. My own kids have said, Mom, are you leaving the big city and going to the farm, meeting the love of your life? Mrs. said, adding that she still plans to appear in those types of movies in the future. Those are all fun things we love, but we see over and over and over. So, like, her not wanting to shit on the genre that she makes a lot of money on makes a lot of sense to me. Like, sure. And also, notably, she's not quite naming the same things that I'm naming as far as things that are bad about these Hallmark movies, but still, it is that obvious, even to her and to her children, that these movies follow the same tired trope. And one of those tropes, as I have mentioned, is typically the main character quits her job, or she blows off some important deadline, or something to that effect. She prioritizes work previously, and then she is taught not to continue to prioritize her work. And If it was just a work won't love you back story, I wouldn't have as much of an issue with that, but it's specifically like, work won't love you back as much as this handsome man who can make you his stay-at-home wife, probably, after the fade to black, because we are not going to acknowledge whether you guys are going to live in the small town or the big city, but we have established he's more important than she is, so probably the small town. The Christmas movies that I like, that I want to talk about a bit later in this video, are not gay at all. Now that I'm thinking about it, neither of them feature so much as like a gay side character, but I do think that they managed to do a lot better on the not being weirdly gross and sexist meter than a lot of Hallmark movies I've seen do, and probably than anything that they're doing on this Christian Christmas movie network. Gay Christmas movies also exist, but I think stopping right now to discuss Happiest Season would be against the spirit of this, you know? It does feel more fair to compare these, like, probably equally budgeted, maybe, Christmas movies with each other than it would be to compare, you know, Carol with movie number 43, where a woman returns to her small hometown and meets the love of her life and then eventually quits her job because women can't have ambitions. I couldn't do that and feel remotely honest about it, and I don't even particularly like either Happiest Season or Carol, so yell at me about that in the comments if you want. So despite the fact that I'm a lesbian and I said I make commentary videos about being a feminist and a lesbian, this is more the feminist angle than the lesbian one, because I'm sorry, despite being a lesbian, I simply cannot stop thinking about Hot Frosty. Okay, wait, can I make this desk chair lower if you can't see the snowman? Now I feel like I look really short. I'm not this short. I'm not, like, I'm not, like, tall, but I'm not this short. I thought the headband was what was giving me the migraine, but it turned out that it was just gonna rain for a few days, and I can't handle temperature swings very well. But I'm back, and so are my snowmen, because I would like to talk about Hot Frosty. Hot Frosty is a new Netflix Christmas movie. You might have already heard about it. I think I spent like a week hearing people talk about how good and fun it was on social media before I got around to giving it a chance. And I was expecting to have like a reasonably good time with it, but I wasn't expecting to still be thinking about it like a solid week later. I posted about it the day after I watched it, joking that I might make a video, but I had held off on making posts about it the night before in case I watched it and I didn't have enough to say to make a video. And one of my mutuals on Blue Sky, Cricket, responded and said Jenny Nicholson is not here to make overly in-depth analysis of stupid Christmas movies. You're needed. Which made me laugh in real life, and then I realized I absolutely could just be the lesbian Jenny Nicholson I'd like to see in this world. So in breaking from my traditional format, I have arranged some of my closing thoughts here about Hot Frosty and this new evolution that I'm seeing in Christmas movies as they try to self-correct, maybe in response to all of these memes. I have organized those thoughts into a numbered list. And thought number 1 is, this Christmas movie is so ridiculous that I almost struggle to understand how it hasn't been made yet. Hot Frosty, if you are watching this but you don't already know, is a movie where the premise is a snowman comes to life and falls in love with a woman. That's it. It's Frosty the Snowman, but he's hot, I guess. I guess he's hot. I am running with it as if he's hot. The movie context clues told me he's hot. This man does nothing for me. I think he has a nice smile, but like, textually, we are meant to understand him as hot. And there are some differences between Jack in the movie and Frosty the Snowman. Yeah. Yep, he's Jack Frost. Lacey Chavert names him that because that's the name tag on some work clothes that he stole from a store that he accidentally broke into after he came to life. The details of this movie are foggy and, like, so easy that it feels possibly ChatGPT assisted to me. You know, I can't believe this movie didn't get made, and that's not because I can't believe that there wasn't a movie where some mysterious old couple gives a magic scarf to a woman who puts it on a very sexy snowman, and it then turns into a human man who breaks the window pane of the same shop that night. Like, sure, we didn't already get there culturally, but I can't believe that nobody has done sexy Frosty the Snowman yet. Like, Again, this is Frosty the Snowman. It's just that it's not an old silk hat, it's a red knit scarf. But this is Frosty the Sexy Man. And how did that not already exist? How did we make it to 2024 without that existing? And that's one of my shorter points here on this list. But thought number 2 is, how did they make the night version of this first? If you have been on the channel for a very long time, like literally since I started around this time last year, or if you're one of the, I don't know, it's like 300 views total, so I figure like a few of those saw it at the time, and some of you just went all the way back in the catalog, which is very cool. But you might remember that for Christmas of last year, I talked about another Netflix movie, The Night Before Christmas. I don't even particularly recommend going back and watching that video. I very much was just still teaching myself how to talk to a camera at that point. But I was and remain fascinated by that movie, which is a little bit more complicated to describe than Hot Frosty, but only because I'm not aware of an existing version of that storyline. I mean, at least not a Christmas one. I'm pretty sure in, like, anime terms it would be called isekai. It's like somebody getting transported to another world. Like, but it's not Narnia. Like, it's not Narnia. It's reverse Narnia, almost. The Night Before Christmas features a Christmas night, which is just a thing the movie expects you to hop on board with and have some existing conception of. He is a knight from a couple of centuries ago, and he's associated with Christmas. His name is Sir Cole, and nobody at any point in the movie ever points out that that sounds like circle, like a shape. And a magic witch lady sent him to modern-day Ohio from his, like, Christmas falconing competition he was doing with his brother. And Vanessa Hudgens immediately hits him with her car, and then they fall in love while also it is Christmas time. I love The Night Before Christmas. I have a soft spot for something that I can watch for a couple of hours and get kind of a fanfiction-y feeling from, even though I don't really read fanfiction very much these days. The Night Before Christmas feels so much like fanfiction, but it also, and I think you'll get this point as I discuss more of the plot of Hot Frosty, if you watch the Hot Frosty movie after having seen the Christmas Night movie, or if you've just heard me talk about the Christmas Night movie before, you might already understand what I'm saying when I say that Hot Frosty feels like a spiritual sequel to my beloved Silly Christmas Night movie. Which brings me to thought number 3 on my list, and why this is part of a video where I'm talking about how Hallmark movies typically tend to hate women. Is this being intentionally subversive? As discussed, usually the protagonist in these Hallmark movies has left her hometown already before the start of the movie. She has abandoned it and her family for a big city, and she needs to be reminded of her roots. And yeah, that's not always a setup for a sexist story, but as a repeated narrative, it can become that. And usually, as was referenced in that write-up I read from earlier, hometown guy is very loved and respected in this small town, or at least he is known in a way that I typically find used to highlight how lonely the protagonist is by comparison. That's actually one of my favorite things to find missing in both Hot Frosty and The Night Before Christmas. This sense of the man being more respected and important in town than she is. Both of these protagonists are women who are self-assured and well-known and respected in the places where they live, and they keep their job at the end. That is usually very carefully implied before we cut to black over the royalty-free Christmas music. I found Hot Frosty and also Night Before Christmas to feel like they were maybe made in a reverse engineering sort of way. Like somebody noticed what it is that people hate about Hallmark movies and asked if there's a version of that they could make that would flip some of the most annoying pieces of these tropes on their head. So everyone knows the woman in these, and she's the one who's responsible for introducing the man around. She is the pillar of the community, and he is fucking obsessed with her about it. So, thought number 4, considering how much of what I hate and see other people hate in typical Christmas movies is missing here, is Hot Frosty a feminist masterpiece? No, it's not, and no romantic comedy probably ever will be. It was just too funny of a rhetorical question for me to ask to leave out. I'm probably never gonna call any movie a feminist masterpiece other than, like, maybe Mad Max Fury Road. Hot Frosty is, however, fun. It is really fun, and it likes its female lead. It roots for her. It lets her play the hero. And that's another favorite thing that I have about both of these movies. Beyond the fact that they just seem to actually like their main character and not just the man she's there to fall in love with, it's that I feel like I can very clearly see, especially given the benefit of 2 movies now following such a similar plotline, what the fantasy actually is here. I mean, I've mentioned it already once or twice before, but I am a lesbian, right? So I do sometimes struggle to see, like, what the appeal would be in a heterosexual romance movie. And I would say also that sometimes that's as much because of weak writing as it is of my sexuality, and that my straight girlies also sometimes watch a movie and feel like, okay, what's my buy-in here? But I do really often struggle with things that are meant to be read as, like, enemies to lovers, especially with a man and a woman, because I'm like, okay, but he's bullying her. Why is he bullying her? He could simply leave her alone. Which is, as I said the first time that I talked about silly Christmas movies on my channel, part of why I felt like The Hating Game worked, like, maybe decently as a book, I guess, but not as a movie, because as a book it was fine, and then because, like, I don't know, reading it was different than seeing it playing out. I was watching it play out and I was like, I don't like this. But that is extremely off topic, and it is not a romantic comedy that I like. In these 2 movies that I do like, I very clearly feel like I can pinpoint the fantasy. And it is not a fantasy of getting too ambitious and then being reminded about the holiday spirit. It's like, what if this person I find really hot thinks that I am the most knowledgeable and cool and helpful person in the world? And they hang on my every word, and they let me teach them things, but they also seek out their own knowledge independent of the things that I'm teaching them about, and also they're a really helpful roommate. And while I'm kidding around about it being some kind of a feminist masterpiece, I don't think I actually am joking when I say that I do think that that's a bit more of a feminist fantasy to be presenting. A more feminist thing to romanticize in relationships between men and women, at least. Men talk over women all the time. Let it be nice and romantic when they don't. Of course, the fantasy, bleak as it may be to call it that, but still is a man who listens and wants to learn. I may not understand fully when presented with the face of this man or any man what the appeal is exactly meant to be, but within just a couple of minutes of screen time of this snowman coming to life and hanging on every word out of Gretchen Wieners' mouth, I was in. And yes, it is Gretchen Wieners, despite the fact that this is a Netflix movie and Lacey Chabert had previously been with Hallmark. Lacey Chabert plays the lead in this movie. I thought she was really good. They've got a great joke you've probably already seen on social media where there's a clip from another Netflix movie with Lindsay Lohan, and Lacey is like, oh, that looks just like a girl I went to high school with. That was fun. I enjoyed seeing Lacey in something new. I haven't seen her in other Christmas movies before this, even though she absolutely has been making them. And I do find the length that the Netflix Christmas cinematic universe goes to tie things together extremely endearing, because there's also a throwaway, oh, and I'm the Queen of Aldovia in Hot Frosty, which means nothing to a casual viewer, but made me sit up in my seat a little bit, because Aldovia is the country A Christmas Prince is set in, and A Christmas Prince is set in the same universe as A Princess Switch, which is a different Vanessa Hudgens movie. I believe The Night Before Christmas also references Aldovia, but not the country that Vanessa Hudgens is the princess of in Princess Switch. So the King and Queen of Aldovia were at a wedding in the third Princess Switch movie. So if this is all in the same universe, there are at least 4 Vanessa Hudgenses running around out there. But I think Night Before Christmas was meant to be a different thing. And the supporting cast also was really fun. Like, you have Daryl from The Office, Boyle from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. They're playing a set of Keystone cops, but, like, the cops are clearly dumb enough it doesn't even feel like it's supposed to be propaganda. And the lady who played the lead in that American Housewife show is there, playing a doctor. I always like her. I truly thought that I had never seen the man who played Jack Snowman, which is what IMDb calls him, by the way, Jack Snowman. I didn't think I had seen the guy who plays Jack Snowman in anything, and then I realized, as I was scripting this video, he's Ted from Schitt's Creek. I truly did not piece that together while I was watching, and I like Ted from Schitt's Creek. I'm sure other people have already given plot beat by plot beat summaries from this movie, and I'm not super scared about spoiling it for you, because it's a fun Christmas movie, a better than average Christmas movie, but it is a Christmas movie. Not a lot about it is going to take you by surprise. But I did want to, like, maybe offer talking you into giving it a shot and giving you a chance to do that, so I don't want to summarize the entire thing. I just want to move into my final point here on my brief little numbered list. Number 5, maybe the Hallmark movie can be saved. Hot Frosty and The Night Before Christmas both only needed to make pretty minor adjustments on the existing format to come out with a movie that I really enjoyed and that I think that a lot of the people who have issues with existing Hallmark Christmas movies would really enjoy too. Obviously, your mileage may vary if you just hate Christmas movies or little sweet romances in general, but like, if you're looking for something that is seasonal and ridiculous, it can be nice to turn on one of these and not also feel like you're being directly beamed, go get pregnant and barefoot on a Christmas tree farm, brainwave vibes. I enjoyed Hot Frosty. I also enjoyed working on a script about something a bit more low impact than a lot of the other things that I tend to cover on this channel. I would love to know what you thought, if you have other favorite tradition-bucking Christmas movies, or even ones that you might really love that follow the formula that tends to get laughed at. Like I said, this is definitely the most Christmassy of my themed videos, but I did want to talk about Rent on December 24th because that's when the musical begins. But just like Rent is not a particularly Christmassy show, I don't think that's a very Christmassy video other than when I am planning on premiering it. But still, sending love and seasonal and warming or cooling vibes depending on what part of the planet you're in right now and what the weather is doing. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Thank you very much to my Patreon subscribers, a few of whose names you can see on the screen right now. Patreon is a fantastic way to help support me financially. I also have like a coffee if you just want to do one-off little tip or a Christmas present or whatever. It is a huge help for me. Thank you so much to everybody who has supported me through the Patreon, through the coffee, by watching my videos, liking them, subscribing to my channel. All of that is a huge help. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me, and another apology to Danielle who caught those Candace Cameron burstrays earlier. I will see you again very soon. I love you. Bye.